so many people do think that the church is out of touch. That's one of our catchphrases is the church out of touch? Because we have not continued with society, so to speak. But
let me start here. Is that the worst thing in the world? Look at society. The church is out of touch. I would be going, well, more churches should be more out of touch.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And that's what our whole premise is to reveal through our talks that the church is not only not out of touch, but it's the only one really in touch with what's going on today and how we solve society's ills, not by legislation, but by making people think and having a change of heart and a change of mind.
And the speakers that you have this evening, as St. Joseph's, it's Dr. Christopher Manchin, and his talk, the myth of overpopulation. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Well, a lot of people were worried about that, thinking it would be boring. But what we don't realize is that the driving force behind abortion, birth control, all of the things that are going on in our society is based upon what people came to believe in the 60s and the 70s about overpopulation. That if we continued the birth rate as it was at that time, especially in underdeveloped countries, that we would not have enough food, that we would all be starving, there wouldn't be enough land, there would be too many people on the earth.
Instead of putting a tinfoil hat on the Pope instead of that really cool hat that he already has, is there, and maybe I'm politicizing where is there a leftist agenda? And I don't mean, maybe not leftist, but you know where I'm going.
I do know where you're going. I don't want to get into politics because we're told not to as priest, but
and tap dance around my question as best you can.
But I think there is an agenda. It would probably be labeled as a leftist agenda today.
An anti-God agenda, an anti-Christian agenda?
Yes, very definitely. It's there. It's very clear. It's in our society.
Pardon me just a second. I want you to start that answer again, but I want you to look at Erin when you're talking about this, because she's the one that thinks I have the tinfoil hat when I talk about these things, that there are
black helicopters come
that
get
there are
him.
nefarious, godless forces who have a plan and who infiltrate. I'm not the crazy guy here, am I?
I don't think you're crazy.
Perhaps. Well, go ahead.
He paused a lot. I like that.
I don't know. I don't know you that well.
You look a little nutty from where I'm sitting.
But I think there's a clear agenda of removing God and placing the state in the place that God once was. And when I say the state, I'm talking about governments, because I think that that's the one thing. I mean, if you look at our Constitution, there are 4 pillars, I think, that uphold our freedoms, and they are the freedom of religion, the right to keep and bear arms, the freedom of the press, and the right to assemble. And if you take one of those 4 pillars out, then we begin losing freedom. And I think the freedom of religion, of course, is the most important one, because if I'm not allowed to worship my God and serve my God in the way that I see fit, then I am no longer free.
Do you see all 4 of those pillars under attack?
I think very definitely. I think freedom of speech is very definitely under attack. We can't say the things. Oftentimes you have to think about what you're preaching on. And I know in some countries, even now, Canada, for example, if you say anything about against homosexuality, your church comes under attack. And we've seen that even here in this country at times. Now, there are some people who are out there on the fringes who say things that are completely inappropriate and not in accord with God, about God hates or something like that. But being able to speak the truth boldly has always been the cornerstone of Christianity.
Who needs to hear these lectures?
I think it would be beneficial to anyone. Our goal is to educate the Catholic faithful first and foremost. But I think that any Christian or any man or woman of goodwill would need to hear them. I think one of the biggest problems in our society today is a lack of dialogue. where we can actually talk about things without attacking one another. And that's the way these talks are kind of geared, is sharing information so that people can think. One of the cornerstones of the Catholic faith is that God gave us a brain and he wants us to use them.
So the series of once a month on the 25th of the month at St. Joseph's, right? Where at your church?
This one's at St. John's
it's St.
tonight.
John's. I'm sorry, this one?
We're sharing between St. John's, the cathedral here in Shreveport on Jordan Street, and at St. Joseph's Church.
Gotcha. So
we're
this
flipping
evening
back and
is
forth.
at St. John's.
Yes,
Sorry.
at 6:30 p.m.
And the website, once again, is?
God, Sex, and the Church.
Org. O-R-G. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a speaker every month running through, I guess,
October
of this year.